Welcome back to Coaches of Louisville. My name is Lainey Vincent, and today I will be interviewing Chris Arnold, a TS2 coach specializing in triathlons, but also does a lot of runners. So welcome. We're glad to have you.
Yeah, Lainey, thanks for having me here today. I'm excited just to be able to take part in this conversation.
Yeah. Well, we want to start off back at the beginning. So what was your childhood like, or what got you into sport?
Yeah. Early childhood, mainly I played basketball and raced horses. And then in high school, like any kid, they want to have more basketball playing time. And so one of the assistant coaches on the basketball team was like, hey, Chris, if you want to see more floor time, you should start running. You should join the cross-country team. You should join the track team, and you'll get more endurance and you'll be able to play more. So like any high school kid, of course, that's what I want to do. So I started running and had great success on the high school level. So much success that I ended up being blessed and having a college scholarship to go to the great Union University in Jackson, Tennessee, and ran cross country in college. From there, I ended up hating running, to be quite honest. I got done with college running, and I was like, I'm never running again. It's done. We're over. And I really thought I was going to never run again. And so after, a couple years of not running, I had some buddies start doing triathlons. And one night they stayed over at my house, and they were going to do an Xterra, which is an off-road triathlon. And so they were talking to me all about it, and that kind of jazzed me up. Like I got amped after that, and got a mountain bike, got a road bike, and started to get ready 2 months later to do another Xterra with them. And as soon as we got done, this is right out of college, as soon as we got done with that Xterra, having no idea what I'm doing, they're like, hey, I bet you won't do the Ironman with us. I'm like, sure, whatever that is, let's go. And they describe it to me. I'm like, in total stupidity as a, young 20-something, not saying young 20-somethings are stupid, but I probably was in this moment. I was like, let's go, let's sign up, let's go, let's do it. So that's kind of what started my journey to where I'm at in triathlons.
Wow, what a journey, for sure, to
Crazy.
kind of go and not know anything
Yeah.
about it and be like, okay, sure, let's do it. Going back to your childhood with it, when you started going from basketball to running,
Yeah.
what was that atmosphere? Because a lot of running is more individualized versus
Right.
Being on a team sport. How was that transition, and what did you like about that?
Yeah, for me, I found the team aspect, especially in running in cross-country meets, because, you always want to score points, be, part of that top 5, or even if you're in the top 7, try to put points on another team. So I had that team aspect that I wanted to do well in. And then, 2, I'm just a competitor. So, like in high school, I wanted to set school records. I wanted to beat my teammates. That competitive spirit drove many of us on our team trying to beat each other. And then in track, I think some of the most fun things as a distance runner, running the mile and 2 mile, having the opportunity to run the 4x4. We took 2 endurance runners and 2 sprinters to make up a 4x4 team, and we had success. And so I think having those team aspects to it really helped encourage me to want to stay in running as a sport. And so I think that's the team aspect that I needed during that season of life, for sure.
Cool. And then you said you went on to college and
Yeah.
ran there. How was that transition from going? It's not as intense, in high school as in college. And because by the end you said you were done with it. So
Yeah.
what was that experience like for you?
It was a unique experience. My first year running, our coach was coaching, you could almost say virtually. He was off finishing up his doctorate, and so he had a grad assistant coaching us that knew nothing about running. And so one of my teammates decided that he would have us doing Oregon workouts, whatever the Oregon team was doing. And so he had us doing 2-a-days and running 80 miles a week, and that really drove our morale down as a small cross-country team. I'm like, bro, we're not Oregon. We're an NAIA school. Like, this is not what I signed up for. And so needless to say, most of us on the team did not have any PRs that year because we're just overrunning. From there, I never, I don't know. From there, sophomore, junior, senior year, I just took it in, had fun, and just ran. I think my junior year I had my best year, but my senior year I ended up becoming all conference. But I felt like my competitive spirit lacked a little bit just because I knew I wasn't the best. Like high school, being in this high school level, it was easier to stand out. College, not so much. And so you're running against D1 Division I schools and you're getting blown away. And I didn't put the work in I should have during college, looking back for sure. So the college experience to me, I think I went with, I want to have fun more than I want to be serious about this running thing.
Sure. Yeah, and then kind of takes a turn, a different
Right.
direction when you got done. As far as triathlons, when you just kind of got into it because of your friends, how was that experience? What did you feel overwhelmed with maybe when you first started? And then as time goes on, of course you learn, but what's some things you wish you would have known maybe at the beginning?
Yeah. In the very beginning, I wish I would have, my first race was in 2010. That's when we all did it as a bunch of college, friends. It was a few years after college. And I tell you, it was probably one of the funniest experiences looking back. My longest bike ride was 100 miles in a club setting. So we stopped every 25 miles at a SAG stop and got peanut butter and jellies and that kind of stuff. And so I thought the Ironman was going to be like that. I thought you would ride 25 miles, you stop at a SAG stop, and then have a buffet of food, like on this club ride. But they didn't, and I didn't know that until the day before the race. And I probably would have ran more. I would have trained in the run more. I think my longest run was 15 miles, 2 months before the race. And so I think I would, if looking back, I would want to have more expertise on nutrition in 2010 at that first race, and more expertise in just being smart and actually training. But I wanted to make sure for that 2010 race I beat my friends. That was the whole reason, because one of my friends is the ultimate smack talker. I mean, he talked smack the entire time of training. So that's kind of where it started. And so I wish I would have told my younger self, hey, be a little bit more serious, because it's going to be a long day. And so the night before, this is kind of funny, and I look back, I just shake my head at myself. The night before the race, I'm in the hotel room making peanut butter and jellies. And so I'm making for the bike, I'm smushing peanut butter and jellies into my bike saddle. And or not my saddle, but this little bike bag I made. And I had a peanut butter and jelly each hour on the hour. I had a bag of pretzels and Starburst and anything you could think of just stuck in my bike jersey. And it was like a buffet. So every 30 minutes, I'm just shoving food down and just having a merry old time. And every 30 minutes after I eat, I'm spraying suntan lotion on. I'm I'm not going to die out here in this August heat. And so I look back and it's just almost it's comical of how far I've come in this crazy sport.
Right. You go from nutrition and peanut butter and jelly and Starburst to I'm
Yes.
sure doing goose, some type of nutrition that way. So
Absolutely.
very different.
Yes. Yes.
I've heard peanut butter and jelly on the runs before, or
Right.
ultras. I've heard it that
Yes.
sense, but not as much in the triathlon.
Yeah, it's probably not the smartest move
Right.
that day. It's definitely better plans out there than what I was going in.
Right.
with.
You got the peanut butter, you got the protein, you got the sugar, so it at least had something going for you.
Yes.
But as you got more into triathlons, you continued and competed and have gone to Worlds and qualified
Yes.
for different events. How was that transition, and what made you want to stay with that distance?
Yeah, I think, like I said earlier, I'm a competitor. And so when we moved to Louisville, my family, when we moved to Louisville, I didn't race from that 2010 race. I didn't do another race until I moved to Louisville in 2014, 2015. And I was at the finish line of the Ironman, and all those competitive juices just started flowing. I'm like, I want to do this again. Not only do I want to do this again, I want to do it right. I want to train hard and see how fast I can actually do this. So I caught the bug, or the real bug at that point, after a 4-year hiatus from the sport. And I've been going pretty solid ever since then. And so, I've had success, but the reason I've had success is I've had the right people in my corner teaching me, helping me grow as an athlete and understanding a nutrition plan. Nick Schrambarger is one of those people that's helped me grow a lot in the sport to understand and have a plan going forward.
That bug is definitely something. I've been at several different ones. I just had a friend who did an Ironman, and she jazzed me up. I was like, okay.
It's contagious, I'm telling you.
So if you want to think about doing it, either volunteering at one of the races is a great way to kind of learn and kind of understand a little bit. Obviously, not the same thing as doing it, but a good way to kind of get an experience and figure out if it's right.
Right on. Yeah.
But, well, cool. What is one of your favorite races that you've done, or one that sticks with you?
Yeah. I think there's 2 races that really stick out to me more than anything. I think in 2019, when at the 70.3 World Championships in France, that race really sticks out to me, just because I knew it was going to be a long day. That course was hard. You had to bike up a mountain for 26 miles or 27 miles. It was just constant, just grinding the gears, pedaling up this mountain. And then on the way down, like, it's nothing but just steep downhill switchbacks. And if you don't know what a switchback is, it's just a bunch of S curves, you know. And let me tell you, the Europeans, they have no fear. Like, in my head, I'm like, I want to get home safely to my family and to my wife and to my kid. So, like, I'm riding the brakes the whole way down this hill because it's so many switchbacks and I don't know the road. And I'm like, I'm going to be very conservative down this thing. So I'm pumping the brakes. At one point, I heard somebody hit the guardrail. And so, like, I'm pumping the brakes even more. And then I have some crazy Europeans going by me, like brushing my shoulder, yelling at me to get out of the way. I'm like, it's okay. Don't worry about them. So, like, that was a crazy race. And then I think just the atmosphere of being there, because I put in a great half marathon time because my legs were fresh from riding the brakes down a mountain. But the atmosphere of being there and having all the people just standing on the street the whole half marathon, just cheering you on, was a pretty epic thing. Like, you had so many people from across the world there to cheer you on. And so to me, that was a pretty epic day. Another race that sticks out to me is 70.3 Ohio from this past year. It was a day that everything went right. From the swim, it was a solid swim, not my best swim, but it was a solid swim day. Quick transition onto the bike, and it was a fast bike course. So I was able to just grind it out and have a super fast bike split. And then I had an incredible PR type of half marathon. So I had like a complete race and a PR that day that really just left me excited, thinking, okay, now how can I get faster again? Never really being content with what I did. Like, that afternoon, I'm like, okay, I got to be faster here, here, and here. Like, thinking of ways just to shave more minutes off. So that was a race that stuck out to me. And the last race that stuck out to me was probably this year also in Maryland. Ironman Maryland, it was a day that nothing went right. Like, very rarely have I ever had an Ironman where things went wrong. But this was a race where the water was too warm for wetsuits, but USA Triathlon decided to change the rules that day because there's so many jellyfish in the water. It was infested with jellyfish. And it was insane. They're like, hey, we're going to let you wear wetsuits today in too hot of water. And it's a 2-lap course, and you're getting stung as you're reaching out in the water and pushing through with your hand and all that. You're getting stung on your neck, any exposures on your skin, between your fingers, your lips, your face. And so that was an experience I've never had before. Get out of the water, got onto the bike. The bike generally is my strong suit out of the 3 disciplines. And somehow my bike seat had dropped an inch overnight, because when I racked it, everything was perfect. So I don't know if somebody messed with my bike and maneuvered it, because it was moved on the bike rack during the night after I left. And so I was like, okay, something happened to my bike seat, and I didn't notice until about mile 10. And so on mile 10, I kind of do this number on my bike seat to see if it's loose, and it drops another inch. So I rode 56 miles or more with my bike seat dropped below where it was supposed to be. I'm like, all right, this is adversity. We got to face adversity. We got to keep pushing. We got to figure it out. So every aid station, I'm in arrow, I'm looking, do you have an Allen wrench? Do you have an Allen wrench? I'm just yelling as much as possible through every aid station, trying to have an Allen wrench. Note to self, from now on, I'm going to pack one and not rely on aid stations. And so finally at mile 56 or so, they had an Allen wrench. So I got off, tightened, raised my seat back up. Shout out to Michael Carroll at Grit Cycling, because he came in, put a Sharpie mark right where my seat post is supposed to be. And so I knew where the seat was supposed to be. So I raise it up, tighten up, and start going. And then about 5 miles later, my power meter goes out. It just starts reading ungodly numbers. Like, it's reading like 1,000 watts, which is insane. Like, I don't even think nobody can ride at 1,000 watts. I'm like, great, now the power meter is messing up. Never has this ever happened. The batteries refresh, because I'll go through a checklist of things I'm doing before race day. So I'm like, all right, now I've got to ride by feel, by heart rate, by speed, and just get through the rest of this bike and then see what's left in the run. So going through all those things that are not going my way, I get to the run. I've had some health issues leading up to the race. So the whole run, I'm thinking, okay, stay in the right zones, don't get overheated, because we don't want to have heart issues during this race. And so luckily I didn't. I finished the race, did not have the time that I wanted to, but ended up being 3rd overall. And they only give away 40 spots. Typically, they only give away 40 spots for the full Ironman World Championships in Kona. So I was 3rd in my age group. I'm like, all right, I should have a spot. but they told us right before the race they're only giving away 29 spots. So it was the winner of each age group. So I was like a little disappointed about that. And then I've got an email, kind of surreal moment, like an email saying, hey, Ironman's never done this, but hey, we've been giving more than 40 spots at other races now because of COVID. So we're going to stay true to our word in the top 40, or we're going to now give away 40 spots. So if you missed, there's 11 spots floating for your race. I was like, the dream has finally come true. I may not have got it race day, but I ended up getting my spot to be able to go to Kona. I was like, you know what? That's about par for course. The way that day went, it just needed to be drug out a little longer. So that's probably one that was a memorable race for sure.
Wow. And crazy to get it,
Yes.
on a day where things didn't go right.
Exactly.
And it still came out. You just kept pushing through it in that adversity. You didn't give up. You kept going and see what happened. Because especially on the bike, like being on a seat that isn't the right level, I can imagine how out of position is going to throw you off. It's,
exactly.
going to change everything. Wow. And you have that race coming up. That's in June?
That's in October.
October.
So that will be the World Championships in October. So it's right around the corner.
Yeah. What are you prepping for it now? Like, what does it look like as far as how many weeks out do you start? I'm used to marathon, verbiage, but not so much on the triathlon.
Yeah.
Like how far out you really start to train and focus on a race.
Yeah. Well, for me, training never stops. Like I'm training as long as I'm healthy. I'm training year round. So I'm always keeping a base and then trying to build and get stronger with that off that base. So right now I am building for that, and then about 3 months out we will really ramp up to the mileage I need to for Kona. But really we're focused on just getting stronger in the 3 disciplines, especially the run and the bike. That's what we're focusing on in my training right now.
Sure. And you say we. Do you coach? And so we'll get into that in just a few minutes.
Yeah.
But do you have someone else who does your training, or do you kind of do it on your own? And it's nice to sometimes not rely on yourself, have someone else to be stress-free for you. But
yeah, I believe in the power of teamwork. Like I think having a team around you is going to make you stronger. And I think that's in life. I think that's in triathlons. I think that's in business. Like whatever you do, like if you have solid people around you, you're going to be stronger, especially if you have a cohesion and a healthy team. And so, I say we because I don't feel like I can take the credit for my success. I think being a part of TS2 and then having Coach Nick coach me makes me stronger. It makes me better. I believe, I'm about to get teary-eyed on that. Nick's been the best thing for me to help me, one, grow in the sport, learn the sport, and really just be able to hit my dreams, the things I've thought about for years of trying to accomplish. So, yes, I have a coach as well as being a coach because it's all about teamwork.
Sure, and that puts a good perspective. Being a coach now, like being coached still, you're still learning, and they're still being able to pour into you and change things. So you're sitting on both sides, which makes it helpful for new athletes coming to you, like knowing that you see both sides and understand both sides.
Absolutely.
So we'll kind of go into that coaching side.
Yeah.
What made you want to be a coach?
That's a great question. I love that question because that's something. Anytime I meet with an athlete about coaching, I think what drives me as being a coach and wanting to be a coach is I want people to have the success I've had. And I'm not saying every athlete wants to qualify for Kona or the 70.3 World Championships, but whatever that dream is that they have, I want to be a part in helping them accomplish that. I have one guy I'm coaching right now. He just wants to run a 5K and then take that fitness to a half marathon. And I'm seeing progress. I get just as much joy out of seeing him make that progress as, another runner that I have. He's 55 and he's run a 3:09 marathon. And he came to me and goes, "Hey, Chris, I want to run a sub 3 hour marathon." I'm like, all right, let's go. Because, you're a runner. That's smoking fast. And especially at his age, I hope he doesn't see this. I'm not calling you old either. But that's incredible. And he has that big of a dream. And me being able to be a part of that just motivates me, excites me. And that's the same thing with the triathletes that I coach. It's seeing people reach their goals. That brings so much joy to me, seeing that come through for them.
Yeah, definitely gives you energy and helps. Can help with your training too, being able to get that inspiration from your athletes and having that team of people around you.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Exactly.
So you coach for TS2.
Yeah.
Kind of tell us a little bit about TS2, what TS2 stands for maybe, and then why you wanted to be a part of that team.
Yeah. So TS2 stands for Tranbarger Schellenberg Training System. So TS2. So it's the first two words of the last names of the first two coaches that started it. And then why did I want to be a part of TS2 is strictly I saw a group of people that have the same principles and philosophies that I do, the same kind of things that drive us as a person, as a human being. And I just saw how much Nick had influenced my life, whether it was going through rough things in my personal life or in work life. And I saw how he was being that positive light that I needed, that I was like, you know what? If I'm going to coach, I want to coach alongside of that and be a part of that team. So one night, he had us do some mental training. We do mental training every now and then. And so he had this mental training thing. And so I typed back or sent him a document of what I've written down for it. And it had in there, be a TS2 coach. I'm like, I hope he doesn't kick me out after this, Mm-hmm. And he immediately, after reading it, he goes, I've been praying for this. I've been wanting this. Mm-hmm. And absolutely. And so it was that kind of thing that got me into coaching with him.
That's awesome. And then in your TS2 bio, it says you believe that when you're choosing a coach, the relationship is the key.
Absolutely.
So if you'll elaborate on that.
Yeah. The reason I say the relationship is key is you've got to be able to trust each other. Mm-hmm. I think you're not just entrusting your training to a coach, but life is going to happen. And so there's going to be days that it may be impossible to get a run in, or there may be impossible to get a bike in or a swim in. And so you're going to share things with your coach that you're not going to just be publicizing to the whole world. And so I believe a coach-athlete relationship is based right there in a trust aspect. You've got to be able to trust your coach. You've got to be able to, and a coach has to be available. And so for me, that's what drives me. I want to have a good working relationship, a great relationship with every athlete. Because, I know they should be able to contact me as much as they want or as little as they want. Mm-hmm. And so I have some athletes that text me constantly, and I love it. It means they care and they're wanting to grow. There's other athletes that don't text too much, but I see that they care because they're putting in the work and getting better as well. So I love just knowing that I have a full relationship where we can just talk and put everything out there, be honest with each other, and then encourage one another. And so to me, the relationship is key because you've got to be able to trust each other. You've got to talk through things and just share life.
For sure, and that makes a huge difference. I've had many different coaches over the years, and so have you, playing all these different sports,
Yeah.
And then in college, that it didn't work out as well as you would like. So I'm
Right.
sure you're using some of those experiences of things that you maybe missed,
Yeah.
being coached that way, or definitely how you went about things. You're more dedicated in it now.
Yeah.
But having those experiences to now be able to.
Absolutely. I think one thing I would add, because we've had so many different coaches, we've got to realize that this is something we're doing for fun. This is not like a job. This isn't something we hate. This is something we do for fun. And so, I want to be that coach that's going to be encouraging. Hey, I know life is hard right now. Don't worry about the run today. I'm going to take the pressure off. Skip the run. Your family needs you, and I think we need that as athletes at times because in the world we live in, it can get so stressful, so hectic. And so sometimes, I'll have athletes text me at 9 p.m. at night, 10 p.m. at night. Hey, I'm just getting home. I don't feel like doing the bike, but I know I need to get the bike done tonight. What do you think? I'm like, go get some rest. Go to bed. We'll make it up later. Don't worry about it. Because we need that freedom. We need to have somebody that can just tell us, hey, one workout missing is not going to kill us. Right. Rest and your family and your work life, especially your family, should come first. So.
For sure. It's definitely good to have that in your corner, because if not, you can go to bed, you're like, okay, no, I'm going to just go to bed. And then you're thinking about it all night, and you're like, okay, I should have just gotten it in because I'm not sleeping well. But having someone in your corner really to speak, the truth to you, okay, one workout isn't going to kill you. This is going to be better, because sometimes sleep is going to be more important, or that time with family, than during that run.
Exactly.
Like you said, one run isn't going to kill you.
Right.
Or
bike, swim,
whatever it is.
Exactly.
Yes. And so you coach a lot of triathletes,
Yep.
but you also do running.
Yes.
Do you do anything else?
Yeah, I have. Right now, I have a lot of people. It's just a lot of triathletes and runners. That's been, the majority of people that sought me out is for help. If somebody came to me wanting just strictly biking, I can do that. Swimming, I can do that. But there's a lot of good swimming coaches out there that know the nuances of the form and everything like that. That's an area that I continue to grow in, but also know there's places in our city that can help you jump me, in leaps and bounds of what they need to do. And I would point them in that direction if it was solely just swimming.
Yeah. So when athletes are coming to you or approach you, like, what does that process kind of look like, and how do you figure out if it's the right, way to go as a team for both of you all?
Yeah. Usually it's pretty simple. Like usually we'll get an athlete, they'll contact us, contact me, or however. A lot of times it's through relationships. Like that's how athletes usually find me. Like y'all have referred people to me, like Olivia that just used to work here, and she's killing it, by the way.
She is.
And then it's wild to see how athletes find me. And so usually we'll just go grab coffee, and I want to use that moment just to get to know the athlete. Like what's their life look like? What do they do? What's their family life look like? And just sit down and have a conversation, talk to them about their dreams, their goals, what they're wanting to get out of it. And then I'll share and answer any questions that they have. So usually that's the first step, is that initial just relational contact. Like, let's just sit down and talk. Let's chat, kind of like we're doing, just chatting it up and figuring out what they want to do. And then from there, if they want to take the next step, I'll send them an email with like a questionnaire that they'll fill out where I can get more into the weeds and the details of what they're doing. And then we get started. We get rocking and rolling and get ready to accomplish some dreams that they have.
That's awesome. With triathlon coaching especially, I'm not as familiar, but a lot of people listening might not be, because we do a lot of running, a lot of different things like that. But when you're coaching like new triathletes, what are some key things you're talking to them about?
I think that's a really big question.
It is.
I think you have to break everything down into baby steps. I've had some people come to me wanting to get in triathlons that they don't even have a bike yet. And so, like the bike is probably one of the biggest things you've got to invest in. And so it's helping them start out in those baby steps and not overwhelm them with information. So, because you can get so much into the weeds about like race day nutrition and transitions and how to set that up and this and, so many different things. So we usually just try to get them started in a rhythm, a workout rhythm. And then as things approach and things come up, then we'll start getting into the weeds more and give them the details they need along the way. Because if you overwhelm somebody, they're probably going to get overwhelmed and may quit. So I try to make it a slow process as we educate and teach and help them get ready for their races.
Yeah, definitely good to take it in strides, because it's 3 sports in one, especially on that side. So you do have to kind of look at it at different angles. And everyone has different strong suits with it. So
right.
On the nutrition side of it, as a key part in any distance, what do you kind of look for? Obviously, everyone's nutrition is slightly different, but taking it like increments, stuff like that. Yeah. It's slightly different with each person, but a lot of the things are kind of the same. And a question we get a lot is on nutrition.
Yes.
When do I take it? A lot of people are training for a half and full marathon, the KDF right now. When's the best time to take it? What should I take?
Yeah.
But in triathlons, you're even out there even longer too.
Yes.
So just the whole thing.
Nutrition is key. Like, for everybody training for the KDF, the full or the half, like, if you're not, this is a pro tip out there for you. So make sure you write this down. You need to be training with your nutrition right now. Figuring out what your body can handle, and as a coach, I'll sit down and let them know how many calories they need, how much intake do they need to have, and so that we can figure out what's going to work for their bodies or not, because some people can't, this, like some people can't do gels because it's just messes up their stomach. Well, they may get one of the waffles, well, the waffles may not be enough calories, so how often do we need to take it, and how do we mix that in with Gatorade and water or whatever else your stomach can handle? So the training right now that the athletes are doing that are coming into your store, they've got to make sure they're training with it and not just showing up to race day with no clue, because then they may bonk, they may overeat, they may get side stitches. There's so many variables that they're going into race day with not knowing what to expect through that.
Might come with their peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Hey, somehow I got blessed and got through that.
Yeah. And then with different training, you do a lot of adults is kind of where you're with. And triathlon is something you don't see as many younger kids. Definitely 20s is still even an age that you don't see as many people in.
Correct.
But how is your training? Like, how do you have that full kind of range? I know you said you had a 55-year-old doing some different races, but what does it look like, and who are you generally kind of coaching?
Yeah, I have people from anywhere from like 22, 23, all the way up to their 60s. I mean, it is, to me, it brings a joy. Like when you see, like right now we have 2 daughters that are in their 20s, and now their dad has caught the bug watching them. He saw both of his daughters, Meryl and Olivia. He saw his daughters racing in Maryland, and he's like, hey, hey Chris, can I talk to you about triathlons? Am I too old? Are you sure I could do this? I'm like, no, man, I think you can do it. We just got to build you up correctly and like build that endurance up and set a good base, and then we'll attack and see what we get, you know? And so to me, that brings me joy, seeing somebody even at his age wanting to accomplish that. And then, you know, I have a young guy, he's early mid-20s, and he's a stud. His name's Matt. And he called me up. He was like, hey, I'm doing a draft legal race. And that's a whole different nuance because you got to worry about drafting and cornering and bike handling skills. He goes, and I want to qualify for the Worlds. I'm like, all right, then let's go. Let's figure it out. And sure enough, like he had one race to do it, and he did it. You know, it was kind of cool moment to see him make that qualification that day. So yeah, so I have people from their mid-20s all the way up to, you know, late 50s, early 60s. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And that's the one thing a lot of people might think, oh, I just get a coach, you know, through high school, through college, but don't think like they can get a coach later on in life, but so many more sports, and there's so many opportunities to grow. And like you said earlier about having that team around you, that's what has helped with your success, and that's where it can really help a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Well, we'll kind of go into philosophy a little bit. This is kind of broad, but what is your coaching philosophy, and how do you kind of figure out?
Yeah, I think I've once I read your question about that, I was like, I've been thinking today, I'm like, what is my philosophy? You know, to me, it's simple, and I've already said this a million times, but my philosophy is let's dream big, let's be consistent, and then let's attack it. Like, let's dream big, figure out what it is you want to achieve, and then let's consistently train for it. And then let's go achieve that goal, repeat. Because, you know, once you achieve a goal, there's a bigger goal. Now let's go after that one, and let's go after that one. So that's really, I think that's my philosophy, because I want to partner along with people that wants to dream big, have some audacious dreams that may scare me or you or them themselves. But hey, why not dream big and let's go achieve it?
Right,
you know?
Sure. Yeah, when you have that team around you, then it makes you, and
Yes.
having a team where like all your athletes, I think, like have a group, you know, chat where you all can all talk and kind of different things. But when someone else helps believe it with you, and that's where a coach is super helpful.
Yes.
You can trust that it's going to happen, or that if I follow the plan, I'm going to do everything I can to set myself up, and then to see, kind of check off, you know, each goal. And sometimes it takes a while to get to those goals.
It could take years. You know, I've told people, the biggest thing in training, and this is the thing I preach so many times to athletes, is consistency always wins. Like in whatever you're doing, that's in home life, that's in your job, training especially. Like if you want to get fast as a runner, you know this, like you got to train. Like you can't run 2 days a week and expect to get better. But if you run, you build yourself up. I'm not going to tell people that's never run, you know, not running consistently now to go out and run every day of the week, because you got to build that endurance up where you don't get injured. But, you know, having a good plan, being consistent with it and sticking to the plan, over time, you're going to get better. Consistency is king.
What are some things, like, you're always talking to your athletes about, like, different, either new in it or that have been doing it with you and training under you for a while? Some things you're reminding them of?
One of those is consistency. Like, hey, consistency is king. Like, that's one of the things we preach all the time. The other thing is, you know, then you get random texts like, hey, what is your thought on nutrition? Like I get a lot of nutrition stuff, which is what I tell them. I'm going to help them prepare a good race day nutrition plan. And so we'll sit down and talk through that, and we'll plan that out. We may have a nutrition plan 6 months out or 3 months out before the race, because I want them training with it, because I don't want them showing up to race day and getting sick to their stomach. So like, we're going to be so detailed that we're going to look at the meals the day before the race, what you're going to eat before the morning of the race, what time to eat it before the race, and then we're going to start looking at what you're going to do before you get in the water and start swimming. And I'm especially on a long course like 70.3s and full Ironmans, we're going to talk a lot through that. And then how much water, or how much, because necessarily you're not going to drink and consume water on the bike, because that's just empty calories. So we want to make sure you're putting in hydration that's fueling your body along with whatever else you need to intake. Or some people are straight liquid for their nutrition. So we're going to develop a plan and practice that. So we do a lot of talking like that and about consistency of training and workouts. And probably the third thing we talk about is, you know, reconnecting. Hey, what's your dreams now? Like you've achieved this one, what is it now? Hey, are you still pursuing this one? So I mean, those are the 3 top things I probably talk the most with athletes about.
With like coaching, do you have a lot of athletes that are like beginner triathletes or beginner runners, or do you have like a good mixture of like people that have switched over coaching or just wanting to try something new? Sometimes coaching, you can coach with someone for a while and you're like, okay, I'm ready to try something else out. But
I think I would say I have a mixture of everything. I have, and I'm blessed. Like I don't like saying it's like. But I am so fortunate to have so many athletes that, they trust me to help them get better. And so, I have so many athletes that are new to the sport. And so that's fun because I get to educate them and they're like, are we annoying you with so many texts? I'm like, no, I'm loving it. Some people, it may be me sending them videos on how to work their Garmin watches. Well, how do you do this? How do you take auto lap off? Well, that's easy. And I'm taking a video and sending it to them. So that to me is kind of fun because it's helping them learn and grow. And then I have your advanced, like your age group elites, people winning age groups. And that's a unique challenge because when you get to that level and you have the age group elites that are wanting to qualify for worlds and that kind of stuff, the training looks different because they're intense and they want to not just finish a race, but they want to do it fast and they want to beat people and they want to win their age groups and win races. And so at that point, you have to dial in everything. You got to be really focused on helping them achieve that goal. And so to me, that's just as exciting because, you really have to look at the data and the details and pay attention to every little thing. And, I do the same thing with the beginners, but with the advanced, there's more speed and more of the other things you have to include into their workouts.
Sure.
And their volume's more.
Right. How have you grown yourself as an athlete, being a coach, and what has that brought to you as an athlete?
Yeah, I think what's grown me is having the success and then the failures. I think that's what grows you more is when you experience the ups and the downs, so that way you can relate to your athletes. I can tell you, like in 2019, I think it was 2019 Ironman Louisville, they canceled the swim that day. I'm a solid swimmer. I would swim sub-hour because that's what mathematically you can look, and that's what I've done every year at Ironman Louisville. So I knew the swim, where I'd be at, I'd be right there in the thick of things. But I also knew I had some heart issues, and so it took me out of training. And so I didn't have the run fitness that I needed. And so I told myself, I was like, we're just going to see where the cards fall. Like, we're going to give it all I got. And that was the day I got off the bike, third overall in the race. I'm dancing. I'm pumped. I'm getting goosebumps as I'm running on that because they changed the run course and now it's a 3-lap course and I'm getting goosebumps and all this. So I'm like, is this going to finally be the day I qualify for Kona? And then I come around because you're running down there at the river road and at the park and the sidewalks and all that. And then you come around these apartments and they had you run down the boat ramp and run right back up. And I saw first and second there. I'm like, no way. Am I going to have an opportunity to take over first here? Like, there's no way. I don't have the run fitness for this. And I missed a turn. Oh, no. I had to run down the boat ramp and run right back up. And I didn't see it because I saw first and second. I'm like, as a runner, I'm not going to look down for cones. There's nobody there to tell me where to turn. And ultimately, it's not Ironman's fault. It's my fault. I didn't know the course. So that 1/10 of a mile, I didn't know it till later that night after I finished the Ironman, and I ended up falling back to like 27th overall or something like that. But, I can look back, and I gave it all I got. And Ironman said I was DQ'd, disqualified. I'm like, that kind of ate at me for a second. Then I'm like, you know what? I gave it all I had that day, and that's all that matters. That don't matter what Ironman said I did. I didn't cheat. I didn't mean to cheat. I wasn't trying to cheat. I just simply missed a turn. And so I look back on that experience like, I could either let that wreck me and drive me to quit or whatever else, but I'll let that be something that, you know what, I'm proud of the effort I put out that day. And so I think things like that, not going the way it's supposed to, help grow me and shape me because then I can still remind myself I need to encourage my athletes because they need encouragement because they're not always going to hit what they want to do on race day. And so we can look at the data and see what happened and find the bragging spot. Like, what can we encourage you with? And then, hey, we know what didn't work, so let's change it for next time. But don't be so hard on yourself, because man, one thing about this sport is when you talk about elite level people, they're gonna be so on to whatever they failed in, they're gonna forget about the success they had in the other areas, because we're talking about 3 sports. So I try to use my mistakes when I've messed up to remind myself to encourage my athletes when they don't hit hit their goal like they want to.
That's where, I mean, with all of it, it's all on you.
Exactly.
Where, like in a team sport, it's very different.
Exactly.
And so that mental aspect of the sport, how do you get out and maybe train, every day when you're not feeling it sometimes, or when you are discouraged like that, the first couple days after that, you're having a hard time with it. But how did you get to that point where you're looking at the positives, but also, okay, how can I move on to the next thing and being okay with it?
Yeah. I think no matter what, you have to remember your why. Like, why am I doing what I'm doing? And I think my why is what drives me. Like, I want to achieve this. And so that's enough to drive me, because some of the dreams I have still in the sport are audacious and probably some people would laugh and like, that's never going to happen, but I'm going to let it drive me. And if it didn't happen, that's fine, but it's not because I didn't try. So remembering the why is what's key, I think, in a lot of it, and remembering the dream and not being scared and not letting fear cripple you from attacking it.
That's awesome. Going on from that to mentors for you. Who are some of your mentors in the sport, or who helped to shape you into
I think, like I said earlier, I think when I first started getting back into triathlon in 2014, I was cycling and biking with, they're called the Bullitt County Mafia, pretty hardcore group of guys. And so I started riding with them, and at that point I realized in 2014, 2015, I knew virtually nothing, because I considered 2010 like I didn't know what I was doing, and I knew that. And so I would really ask a guy named Seth Stevens, he's a teacher here in town, super dude, man, quality guy. And so I knew he studied and read up on all this stuff and had the knowledge. So I'd always just get in his ear as much as possible to learn. So early on, he was mentoring me, and he didn't even know it. But I would consider him that knowledge resource I needed at that time. And then the biggest mentor right now that I have, I say, would be Nick Trambarger with TS2. And that's ultimately why I joined TS2 as a coach, because power of team. There's so many other coaches that I can rely on. And so if I'm ever stumped as a coach, I can call Nick, or I can call Coach Amanda, or Coach Maggie, or Coach Nate, or any of the coaches. If it's a swimming thing, I can talk to Nick. And if Nick and I are stumped, which usually Nick is never stumped, he's solid, but we have a former collegiate swimmer, so we can turn to him. We have 2 nutritionists as coaches that I can turn to for nutrition. So there's so many things people I get to learn from. And so I think being a part of that team just makes me stronger and makes all of us stronger as TS2.
For sure, yeah. And that you're still a student in the sport.
Yeah, we're all learning.
All learning. Life is about learning.
Exactly.
And you can keep going and building upon it. But so kind of going from there to workouts.
Yeah.
As people are maybe getting into the sport or have been doing it for a while, what are some of the key workouts you think are important for swim, bike, run, or even for just running? Yeah.
I think every athlete's different, first off. If it's a triathlete, we're just going to, especially if they're first starting off, we're just wanting to build an aerobic base. And so I don't want to give out specifics, because then if somebody calls me to coaching, well, you said this in the interview, but I have some people that are just starting out that they're swimming 1 day a week and biking 2 days a week and running 2 days a week. I have others that are starting out, they're swimming 2 days a week, biking 3 and running 3. It just depends, and the volume depends on where they're at and what kind of shape they're in coming to me and what kind of base work they've done before getting to me. And then I have others that are already had that base, and so we can really attack and go after it. And then as far as runners, the biggest thing I would say, especially if they're starting out in running, is what I would like to call zone 2 running, right? And if you're not familiar with zone 2, that's running at a pace that you can have a conversation. Quick story. I was coaching a gentleman, he's a doctor in town, and he's like, hey, Chris, I want to run a half marathon. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And I was like, what is your aerobic base right now? How far can you run? He goes, well, I can't run 15 minutes without stopping. I was like, okay, that's fine. So we started out walking, run 3 minutes, walk 1 minute, and in 6 months we built him up for a half marathon, the Louisville half marathon, which it's got a couple big hills, big climbs. And so he went from not able to run 15 minutes to running a 1:43 half marathon.
Wow.
I mean, it was like, I'm partying. I'm over here dancing, I was so stoked. And he's like, that was pretty good, wasn't it? I'm like, yeah, dude, that was smoking fast. And you set a new functional threshold power today. You set a new pace threshold. You crushed this. So that was the day we celebrated pretty big time.
For sure. And I know a lot of people can relate to that of maybe they're just starting. You know, this is their first half marathon or maybe that they're doing with KDF. And so starting from scratch, but being able to see that success and celebrating the success.
Absolutely. You got to celebrate. And then this runner, this doctor, I'm not going to say his name because I don't want him to come back and punch me. He wouldn't. He's a great guy, Sam. So he didn't believe me about the zone 2 running. He's like, Chris, we're not running hard enough. I'm like, dude, I'm building you up. Just trust me. He goes, I don't think this zone 2 is going to get me there. I'm like, I promise you, majority of your runs right now where you're at need to be zone 2. And then he comes back to me a month later and he's like, so I was doing some reading and research and you're right about the zone 2. I'm ready. I'm going to follow the plan exactly how you have it. I'm like, okay, perfect. Thanks, Sam. Let's go. So,
well, now you have his trust. So
there
we go.
We're good.
When you talk about the zone training, zone 2, what are the different levels of zone training?
Yeah. So you have zone 1, zone 2. Those are aerobic. Zone 1 is, just getting warmed up, and then you get into zone 2, which is your aerobic base. Then you have zone 3 and zone 4, zone 5. So there's 5 zones. Zone 3 is getting into more anaerobic. Zone 4 is like your threshold, and then zone 5 would be your VO2 max. And so that's when you're like sprinting and running really hard or biking really hard, something you're not going to be able to hold very long, right? And so, all those come into play in your training. And so we'll write workouts to help increase especially in biking, your FTP, your functional threshold power. And then for running, your lactose threshold and all that. So we're going to sit back and work on those zones, but you can achieve a lot by just running zone 2. Over time, you're going to get better.
Right.
But if you're wanting to see elite type stuff, we're going to throw in speed workouts and that kind of stuff too.
Right. Sure. And that zone 2 is fun if you have other people,
Exactly.
getting into it, that accountability, having your friends and being able.
That's when you can talk.
You can, and that community of the sport. That's the great thing about running and triathlons. All of that is the community of the sport and the people you meet. You can always wave to someone on a run, and even that sometimes is the motivation that gets someone through the rest of their run or from that ride. Just saying hey or like great job, just talking to people throughout it.
Absolutely.
What is one of your fondest memories as a coach so far? You've coached a lot of athletes, but is there one that kind of sticks out for you?
I mean, there's so many. Like there's one guy, his name's Jeremy. Seeing him, last year, he PR'd everything he did except for one race. Like he won. He ended up winning Louisville after they disqualified some guys that I'm assuming didn't mean to cut a lap short on the bike. He ended up winning, and during that race, he PR'd his 10K and 5K time. He's like, Chris, I'm running as fast as I did in high school. I mean, we celebrated everything. He took his, in the same year, he took his half marathon from 132 to 120. And at the 120, he had to stop and tie his shoe twice. I'm like, hey, bro, get some better laces. But we celebrated that. Because the next time he's going to go sub 120 on a half. This is so fast. But I think besides seeing the PRs, is seeing people finish. Having Ironman Maryland, forget about my day. I had more joy seeing Meryl cross the finish line. I'm not going to tell you her story. I'll let her tell her story. But I would just say she faced more adversity than I did on the day, and she fought through it. Seeing her fight through that, when I'm saying, hey, Meryl, she was having an allergic reaction to the jellyfish during the run, and we won't go into all the details, but I'm like, hey, it's okay. You can just stop. She's like, no, I have 5 miles to go. And seeing that level of adversity and seeing her walk it out and push through, to me, that's just a shining moment, and then seeing her sister, Olivia, she had this, she's like, Chris, I want to win my age group. I want to qualify for Kona. I'm like, in my back of my mind, I'm like, this is your very first Ironman. There's a lot you have to learn in an Ironman, and so many things can go wrong. There's so many variables that to the day. And sure enough, man, she finished second in her age group. I mean, she had a phenomenal day, and seeing her finish, and then she's coming over here like a rock star celebrating, and so that brought me joy. That gave me goosebumps, and seeing that. And then also in Maryland, we had 2 ladies doing Ironman Maryland as a celebration of turning 40, but COVID made it the celebration of turning 41. And seeing their joy overwhelm them as they finished this race and the sense of pride they had, those are the things that will always stick out to me. Those are the things that I am thankful to be a part of and just be a small part of their story. And so I think to me that's what makes coaching fun, and that's what I'm so thankful that people invite me in and allow me to help them reach their goals.
That's awesome. And as far as like being on that coach's side, if
Yeah.
someone's like thinking about getting into coaching, what's something that you would kind of want them to know, or new coaches going
Yeah.
into it?
I would say, first off, if you're wanting to get into coaching, like I would say whether it's run coaching, triathlon coaching, like USA has triathlon coaching clinics. I'm pretty sure they have stuff for running. Like, be somebody associated with that. Like, go and learn the system, because they're going to teach you. But more importantly, apart from that, is they're not going to be able to teach you everything you need to know. Like, I will never regret my decision of joining TS2. I would say join, if there's a coaching group that's allowing other coaches to come in, join other coaches, because you're stronger as a part of a team than isolated and alone. And so because there's so many things we can learn from one another, and it's just going to iron sharpen iron type of scenario. So that's the two pieces of advice I would give. Go get certified to coach, and then be a part of a group of coaches that's going to help strengthen you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that team around you. It always comes back to team.
Yes, teamwork makes the dream work.
Yes, for sure. How is it with your family, like coming to events and different things like that, having, your team as far as your family with you, and also balancing that with coaching and like family life? Yeah.
I mean, my little girl, Maria, she's a 4th grader now, but every time she's an Ironman, she makes a sign that says, "You ain't slow." Like, and then has a picture of me on the billboard or her poster board or whatever. And she's standing there, and seeing her joy for me when I'm doing crazy races like an Ironman and all that, like, to me, that makes my day. Like, I can have the worst day ever, but seeing her on there cheering for me crossing that finish line, or every time I run by and giving her a high five, like, that's motivation for me, and that's exciting to see that. And then and the other side of it as a coach, like, especially in the Ironman's a long day, and then fans can't cover a course of a marathon or if it's a 2-loop or 3-loop course. There's going to be moments and segments where nobody's around. And so when you have a group of your team there, and athletes you're coaching, and other athletes a part of TS2, or maybe you're a part of the Locos or Land Sharks, or just part of a tri club, it's encouraging to be able to cheer each other on. That high five when you're feeling like you're hitting a wall. And you can hear somebody yell your name, or you're yelling somebody else's name just to motivate them and pump them up. That keeps the fire going, and it helps you fight through those walls you may have. So those are the two things that really help on a race day, for sure.
For sure. Well, is there anything else would like to add? I've enjoyed.
No, that's pretty thorough. We covered a lot of stuff right there. I'm thankful for what y'all are doing with Swags. Always taking care of runners and helping them get fitted to the right shoes. Like, that's another big thing. If you want to run injury-free, is being in the right shoes. So thank y'all for the work y'all do here at Swags. And then if anybody, is interested in coaching or becoming a coach, feel free to reach out to me. You can DM me on Instagram at TS2 Coach Chris.
Yeah. So. Yeah, and also check out their website. So
yes. TS2coaching.com. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for coming
on
today.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Absolutely.